was there, and then that the white stag found him at the end of a journey, blind from the shores of creation, and all the time staggered at the forest edge, where haunted and starry drew his bow, thanking the gods for their bounty and keeping. Then saw in the ranged wood, in the first silence, the day's hearts symbol the rack of antlers, resplendent. She lowered the bow, and the world resumed. Then Huma followed the stag, its tangle of antlers receding as a memory of young life, as the towns of birds ascending, the mountains crouched before them. Nothing would change now. The three moons stopped in the sky, and the long night tumbled into shadows. It was morning when they reached the grove. The top of the mountain So